appear inside the room? In other words, was he responding to you and letting you know or giving you some general idea where he was?
He only answered yes to me one time when I asked him if he had my phone, and he said yes. The other times, he would not respond. And when he did answer, it sounded like he was back in the corner by the bed, like laying on the bed, deep in the room.
You're standing outside the door, and tell me how you're feeling and explain to them what's going through your mind and how your body feels and all that.
Well, what's going through my mind is that I want him to open the door so I can get my phone so I can leave. I just wanted to get out of there. I was frightened. I was terrified for my life, really, at this point. I just wanted to get out of there. And then he asked me, what else did you ask me? What else
I just wanted you to describe how you're feeling for them.
Okay.
It's okay.
And then I was feeling like I could hardly breathe at this point, and my hands were shaking so bad. They were just shaking uncontrollably, and my heart was about to pop out of my chest. I was so scared.
Did you intend to shoot Mr. Barron when you pulled that trigger?
No, I did not.
Were you afraid for your life when you pulled that trigger?
Yes, I was afraid for my life. I was terrified for my life at this point.
Now, after you pulled the trigger, what was the first thing that you noticed that there might be a problem?
When I heard a gasp, I heard a loud gasp, and so I banged on the door and called his name out, David, David, and he didn't answer me. So then I ran downstairs really quick, as fast as I could, and got the hammer from the toolbox. And then I ran up the stairs again, and then I banged a hole in the door so I could get in there, and I stuck my left hand in there and undid the lock.
Once you got inside, explain to these folks what you saw in there.
When I got inside, I pushed the door open, and he was laying there in front of the door. And he was laying face down, and his face was to the right, to his right. And I immediately checked for a pulse, and I didn't feel a pulse. So then I found my phone, and I called 911. And I was on the phone with 911. And while I was on the phone with them, there was a brown towel on the floor, and I got that towel and pushed it up against his wound in his chest to keep the blood from coming out. So I was putting all the pressure on that area, keep from coming out.
Why didn't you call 911 before you ran down the stairs and got the hammer?
Because my phone was in the room. I didn't have my phone.
Do you know how many times you tried to call 911?
A few times, maybe.
Okay. Did you also try to call somebody else?
Yes, after I called 911 and spoke with someone there, and then I was still tending to the wound on the side of his chest, I called my sister, Dana Gardner.
Did she answer?
No, she did not answer. I think I called her twice.
You're in the room now. You've called 911. Did you say you made contact with them?
Yes, I did. I called him once, and when I was cleaning up, I was putting the pressure on the wound. I dropped the phone.
Okay. What are you thinking at this time as you found him there? You know you've shot him.
Yeah, I know I shot him, and I was feeling hopelessness. I was feeling worthless. I felt like it was all my fault. I felt like everything was all my fault, everything from before and until that day.
So what happened?
So then I decided to get his gun, and I put it up under my chin. I was going to take my life, and then I put it up there, and I couldn't get it to stay under my chin. The gun I was shaking so bad I couldn't get the gun to stay up under there. And I wanted to push it so bad, but I didn't have the courage to push the trigger. And so my gun just flipped out right there, and I shot the gun. And then I thought I would try it again and see if I could try to take my life, because I was just I was at my wit's end at this point. I didn't know what to do. So I put the gun back up there again and tried to pull the trigger. And I kept pushing and pushing. And I just didn't have the courage to pull the trigger. So I just flipped the gun out again and took another shot. And then the gun got jammed when I was doing that. And I was trying to unjam the gun with the slider on the top part, and my tissue got stuck in there between my thumb and my forefinger. My tissue got stuck in there. So I'm trying to undo it. A lot of the bullets fell out of the gun. And so I decided to clean up the mess I made with all the bullets, because I didn't want anyone to know that I had tried to commit suicide, that I was thinking about taking my life for that. So I cleaned him up and I flushed him down the toilet.
Why didn't you just tell the investigators that that's what happened, that that's why the gun got shot?
Well, I wish I would have been brave enough to tell him, but I was scared to death that if I told what really happened, that Dave would be furious with me, and he'd hurt me worse when he found out what I did.
No, but you could tell him about the suicide. You could still tell him about the suicide, can't you?
Well, I was ashamed that I even thought about taking my life, especially like in front of my children. I wouldn't want my children to think that I would just abandon them like that. So I was ashamed to tell anybody what I did.
Approach the witness. Sorry. Defendants 43 through 67. Can you flip through these and see if you recognize those? What number is that Facebook photo? You know, the Facebook photo that I think of Facebook. Yes. and 239. Thank you.
Yes, I do.
You recognize those?
Yes, I do.
Do they fairly and accurately represent photos from the Bill Morgan class that you had that's related to the Facebook post the state put in?
Yes.
Moving to tender defendants 43 through 67.
No objection.
Admitted.
You remember the state putting in a photo of you and Mr. Bill Morgan?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And there was tell me what your recollection is of what your statement was on that Facebook post. You know, that they put in. There's something about shooting or...
Oh, yeah, about
the evidence will be what it is, but I can't put my hands on the exhibit right now.
about the marksmanship, about breathing before you take a shot.
Yeah.
Right.
Was that a post that you made in relation to a class that he was giving?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And what was your nature, or what was your relationship to that class? What were you doing? What were you trying to accomplish?
What I was doing that night is I organized a shooting clinic for Bill Morgan and the ladies that were interested in learning how to shoot a gun.
Okay. I'm going to show you defendants 43. Okay. And if you can, go through and tell me if you know all these people and who was shooting that day and all that.
Okay.
If you can.
Yes, I know all these women, and they were all shooting that day.
okay?